first thing that we always allow, Ms. Nicholson, is to go ahead and stand and tell the people, number one, how do you identify yourself politically? What are your qualifications for this office? And what do you any other opening statement issues that you'd like to bring up?
All right. And I need to stand up.
Valerie,
It's kind of an informal group, but that's fine. So I don't know if everyone received one of these. This was my first push card, and of course this is kind of your introduction. I am a proud mother of 3, so I really associate with the family values piece. My husband and I have been together 17 years. We both grew up in Round Rock, native Central Texan, moved here in 2009. So definitely consumed a lot of services, really enjoy our community. But about 3 or 4 years ago, really decided to get involved and start to contribute in different ways. So on the back side here, you'll see a list of those particular things in regards to the city. The Commission on Aging and Main Street Program are the 2 commissions board I've been associated with. But I do, again, know a lot of them. But you can read this. Obviously, there's a lot of information there. Really, my top priority is to keep our city safe and vibrant during this time of growth. Growth is happening. It is here. And so it's how to best handle that growth. And I do feel like I can offer a unique perspective in that way based on my professional and also my commitment experience as well. So would that cover everything?
Yes. Okay. And you may go ahead and sit for the rest of this.
It's more conversational that way.
First question is, how do you identify yourself politically? By that, what candidates, organizations, and causes have you supported in the past?
Right. Okay. Sorry, I did miss that one. So I'm fiscally conservative. Definitely believe that we need to keep our property taxes as low as possible. I do believe and trust that then that would free up monies as well. In regards to growth specifically, I do also think it's important that we do have good relationship and we are able to bring in some smart growth and tax those, both sales tax and also commercial property tax as well, in order to maintain the amenities and services that we have. I am fairly independent in regards to if there's a candidate that I disagree with along the party line, I'm going to take that first and foremost. What's most important to me in evaluating a candidate is their integrity and values, not necessarily all of their views. It's difficult to align with one person on every single thing, but if they are open and honest and I can see that from them, that's what's most important to me.
If anyone has questions, you can pass them up forward, but at some point I'm going to break and let this turn into a kind of a training session for Ms. Nicholson.
Thank you.
What civic commissions or boards have you been involved with, and how many council, the second part of that is how many council meetings have you attended?
Okay, so as I mentioned, the Commission on Aging was an appointment about a year ago, and I've really enjoyed it. It's been eye-opening for me. I'm only one of 2 people who are not over 60, but I do have my mom and my grandmother who lives with my mother. We're dealing with some of the issues associated with aging, and obviously our aging population is a significant percentage of our population, so that's been very helpful. I also am involved, I volunteered first and I'm on Economic Vitality for the Main Street program. I don't know if you're all aware that it's more centralized down in our downtown corridor, but I do see that as the heart of our community. I think it's really important that we maintain our square, and that program does some really good work in regards to facade grants and things like that.
Do you have an occupation?
Yes. So I'm a sales consultant. I've been involved in education technology for over 17 years. I also am a small business owner. We have a company called TapStap that my husband and I own and operate, and we employ about 5 Southwestern students, and we get involved in lots of nonprofit organizations that way.
These are all the lowball questions. How are you funding your campaign?
A combination of contributions, personal, friends and family, of course, a little bit of my own money, and time is money, so I am spending some of that as well. Yeah, I mean, that's really been the main thing. And of course, as you know, you've seen signs and things. I appreciate any and all support because I do believe that you need to be visible and you need to be available in order to make yourself a community and be a leader.
Well, Truth for Texans is an endorsing committee. Yeah. From your perspective, what are the key responsibilities you have if you are elected city councilman?
Primary responsibility of the council, of course, is budget and policy, as we all know. I'm not in the business or in interest of really getting involved operationally speaking. I think our city is on the right track. I don't have a big change agenda. What I can commit is to be there, to be available, to be discerning, to be open. And I think that if council is doing that and meeting with groups like yourself on a regular basis and listening to all perspectives, then again, I can contribute in that way.
Good. What do you think are the biggest challenges facing Georgetown at this time?
Well, as I stated, obviously, most things are associated with our growth. I don't think that growth is necessarily bad, but there are some challenges and opportunities, right? The eternal optimist in me says that when we have things like transportation issues, and I experience it myself, right? I live off Leander Road, so whether I'm going up Williams or coming down, I mean, all of those are in my district, and I hear about them a lot as I go door to door. But the opportunity in that is to really, do some road bonds, do things like Southwest Bypass. I lived in Austin and Round Rock, and the north-south issues, that we're trying to actually get in front of are important. I think that transportation is probably the one specific one but also public safety, making sure that everyone has resources that they need, fire and police, to make sure that they can keep up with the growth as more people come in. But it's kind of all related to growth in my mind.
What is your position on the designation of the Georgetown Airport as a reliever airport for aviation?
Yeah, I'm not sure what that really means. I don't see a lot of relief happening, and I assume that's if there was some disaster or something there. I don't know what.
Within the code of the designation, there's a specification that the airport must increase size,
right, and
that it. Do you favor if they enforce that clause? Is there a thought on your part that we would move the airport or expand it in place?
So my understanding is the FAA actually gave us that land. Is that correct?
No, I don't think so.
Time?
Did the FAA give us that land?
U.S. government. It was a military base.
It was a military base, yes. Okay.
So, I understand that if that were the case, that we need to adhere to FAA guidance. That's my understanding of what's happening, not that there's any plans to increase
at this point.
Anything at this point. If that comes up, obviously, we address it as a city, but I don't think that I know enough to really know one way or the other. Obviously, that's also, not that it's not in the district and I wouldn't care, but I know that that's a lot to do with Ty in terms of he's having a lot of meetings and things to make sure that he's kept up to date. So. But I would listen to a group like yourself or really any others to get more information.
There's an effort that is starting to progress across the state that city and county governments are authorizing individual employees to go to the city, to the state legislature and actually lobby against taxpayers' rights and values. What is your position on that movement that's happening?
Individuals that are lobbying at the state level.
From city and county governments that are actually down there to lobby for an action that would be detrimental to taxpayers.
Elected officials?
Elected officials. Well, not elected, employees of the city.
The Texas Municipal League.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of that organization. It seems like a little bit of a gray area to me because whether it's an elected official is obviously going to be accountable to their community, so their community will decide whether or not to keep them electable if they're choosing to do things that are in direct opposition to what I believe in our city and county would be. I don't want you to go. Senate Bill 2 obviously is something that I don't know if that's associated with that or not.
Could be.
But I know that city staff, I can't understand why they would necessarily be doing that. So,
they're under instructions to do that.
Yeah, from the elected officials.
Right.
Ultimately, we're all going to be accountable to our community. So
let's hope so. We are currently members of the Lone Star Rail system. Apparently, we're the only ones that put money into that kitty. And as a municipality, what is your position on Lone Star Rail?
I thought that we had stopped.
We're out now?
We're out.
Excellent.
Yeah, we're out. And I think that generally speaking, and I've seen from Leander, I mean, I've driven it recreationally, but I wouldn't personally say that recreationally once or twice, to go into Austin is enough for me. I did just go to Chicago though, and I rode those trains, and I do appreciate transit rail where it makes sense, but I think there's a reason that we opted out of it. So.
Well, we've been obviously opposed to Lone Star because it was never designed to be a commuter rail. It was designed to be a locomotive going point A to point B with no rail, no right of way to get there. And they finally got an official declaration that said no, and I'm glad our city has bailed out of it. I'm going to throw this open to the group for questions. Anyone want to ask a question?
Before you leave that one question,
Okay.
that was also coupled in with a legislative issue back in 2013 called Transportation Reinvestment Zones
Okay.
that included, it was mostly focused on roads at that time, but it was wide open and included more rail.
Okay.
But those zones created another taxing authority. And when you take BUDs and SUDs, and you're familiar with all of that mess of special districts, like Harris County has like over 150 taxing authorities.
God, their toll road authority is.
So it's these taxing zones keep piling up, and they tax at a higher rate than cities, which is bad news.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, this is where the training starts.
Yes.
Okay, this is where we're going into this, because I'm not as familiar probably as I should be, but yes, sir. Or,
Dave?
Yes. You say you want Georgetown to be safe and vibrant. Define that. What does that look like to you?
so I'm raising kids here. I mean, so my perspective is going to be a mom, a working professional, a wife. So I want to be able to obviously go to our parks, go from point A to B in a relatively easy fashion. Safety is safety. I mean, I think of that as personal safety with fire and police and things like response times and just the general feel. I think that I experience this. I hope that you all do too. When we go to an event, if we go to Poppy Festival, if we go to, we were just at Chase the Chief, that we would experience that in a very positive way. We go up to our police officers, shake their hand and tell them thank you for their service, and we appreciate what they do. That sort of just feeling like you've got it covered and you're in a safe environment. I never hesitate. I had to go to the airport, as I mentioned, to go to Chicago, and I go out in my neighborhood at 3 or 4 in the morning, and I have no hesitation, no worry that I'm in danger, and I think that that's important to maintain, not just in my neighborhood in River Ridge, but everywhere in Georgetown. Does that answer your question?
Well, Rick is next.
Okay. You mentioned transportation as one of the bigger challenges for the city. City Council is now looking intensively, I think, at a bus service.
Yes.
What is your view on potentially transportation for maybe people who don't have a car or just want to get around,
So,
visitors?
yeah, so I'm going to talk about it from a consumer perspective because I've not been on council, so I don't know all of the conversation and information. But I did attend the open house for the bus, the fixed route transit system. And it's not proliferating all over the city, but there is kind of 4 quadrants in representation. In my district, that purple line will go over to the apartments that are off of Luther Drive and Leander Road, which I think is really important for people, example, kids that are home during the summer to be able to go to the library. I mean, it's things like that. Again, I'm a mom and I'm interested in what my 12-year-old might be able to do to not be stuck at home, those sorts of things. I think that, we are seeing some shifting demographics, and we need to be able to address, especially economic kinds of issues if people need to get to work. I think that's extremely important. And then again, just general mobility to try to alleviate some of that pressure off the roads if it makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Partially.
Okay. What was the other part?
Well, it was more like that's an advantage of the bus system, but there are other alternatives. And I'm wondering if you've thought about those at all.
So there are some alternatives for folks who need transportation besides cars and buses, you mean?
Yeah, ride sharing or alternatives to the bus system. I've seen Round Rock looking at things like high wire. Basically using ski lift technology as opposed to buses.
The gondola.
So there's all kinds of alternatives, I was wondering if you
I mean, you know what, let's be honest, we all love our cars. I mean, you know, because it gets us from point A to B. So where I've looked at transportation issues in a specific segment is in the aging population. So organizations like Faith in Action, which is a fantastic nonprofit that's door-to-door service. Carts might leave a little bit to be desired from that perspective, and I think that people will always gravitate toward their own vehicle and a single rider if it's too inconvenient not to do that. So I think educating people on those things, and those are great, but a lot of people don't know about that, so they hop in their car and go. So I think the city's doing a good job at least promoting the bus system, and I think that we will see some positive effect of that as well. And then if there's other things, and that gets people, I mean, making things walkable as well. In my district, there's going to be a sidewalk that goes all the way from Leander Road up to Wolf Ranch. And that's been up for discussion for a long time, but if it makes things more walkable, rideable, like bikes and things, then I think that's positive as well.
Bill?
Oh, on, back to the safety issue, I've got another question to follow on in a minute with economics, but you're familiar with the donut hole problem in Georgetown, where you've got all these unincorporated areas?
Yes.
And you've got emergency
I was surprised to see all of them.
You've got Emergency Services District 8 that covers that whole area.
Right.
I was one of the fire commissioners for a while. Well, the money that's been overly, in my opinion, taken from ESD, instead of being used for actual improvement in safety, it was used to subsidize the EMS program that is a money loser. And one of the key things I want to point out is exactly what you mentioned earlier, is the huge growth, especially out the Highway 29 corridor that's exploding with subdivisions popping up everywhere, which is what I predicted 3 years ago. And the chief poo-pooed it. It wasn't going to happen. But the bottom line is that in order to have better response time, you have a matter of physics, and getting to somebody's need is a matter of distance and speed. So the only way to improve response time is to get response resources closer to the need.
Okay.
So my question to you is, the $4+ million that has been taken for ESD to subsidize a money-losing program could have built a couple substations already, and we need at least 3 more fairly fast. What are you going to do to remedy that problem of getting those stations built so that response time is improved? Because one of our members who lived in Sun City just late last year got bit by a rattlesnake, and it took an hour to get into a hospital that had the resources to treat him.
Right, which obviously is unfortunate. I think, I don't know, obviously you're a wealth of information in this area. So I serve with John Sullivan on the Commission on Aging. He's the staff liaison. So I know him again. If I go back to what is a person's makeup, you know, I trust him as a leader. I think that, and I don't know, of course, you make a face, but I don't know, I mean, that's an operational issue, and so I don't think that's necessarily the job of council to not have a recommendation specific from staff or to question that. Now, if more broadly we determine to do that as a group, then it may make sense. But right now, I just probably don't know enough about it to say I would do substations or not, because I think you're getting down in the weeds. I'm not a specialist in that area. That's why you have 600 staff members. I mean, there's not probably a person on council that's their expertise.
Well, I do have some expertise in those areas, but we'll get offline later.
No, and that's fine, and I do appreciate that.
Mine is also a question about the growth you expect Georgetown, and we know it's growing.
Right.
I would like to know what you know about Agenda 2020 and how you think that will affect the city and its growth in the future.
So I actually looked into Agenda 2020 way back. I mean, this has been years and years, right? So, but let me know what specifically related to.
It's a very progressive program about keeping people into the center of the city,
right,
and everything from from there, and
right,
all of us who are out on the outside aren't what they want.
So are you concerned specifically about services or things that might not be available to you if you are
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I'm concerned about the fact that you're aware of it.
Right.
And you know it does influence city and its
Absolutely.
growth,
Yeah.
and how you see it influencing Georgetown's growth.
I think Georgetown historically, and so I live off Leander Road, a mile west of 35. So I'm not on the periphery, but I do think what I've seen in terms of development, we just had a groundbreaking for Randall's, for example. I think that it has to be city center and that's it. I do believe that our square is unique in order to be, but that doesn't have to do with Agenda 2020. That just has to do with our specific, charm of where we sit as a county seat. I haven't seen anything that would indicate that our city is specifically adhering to or following or even caring about that in terms of not treating everyone around as part of the city and offering those services and development. But if your experience has been different, let me know that. Has it been different?
We can talk offline.
Okay,
It's
okay.
okay. I'm just curious.
Okay.
A follow-on to economic questions, specifically on future growth of Georgetown and Georgetown area business.
Okay.
There's a issue that a lot of people think are great, and it's called public-private partnerships.
Okay.
You've probably heard the term, but if you look at the history, they officially kind of got started back in 1601 with the East India Company,
Right.
which kind of contributed to the formation of the U.S. with the Boston Harbor. But they have also progressed. They almost caused another civil war in India in the late 19th century, and they were the main economic model in 1936 for countries like Spain and Germany and Italy. And
Just a very
Japan.
close alignment between.
Well, yeah, it's
Okay.
basically the economics control the government, but what we have now is that within the city and even county, we've got these planning and development, economic development committees, et cetera, and even city staffs that form these little advisory groups and make recommendations on decisions to the city council.
Okay.
And generally, when you get small groups that together that are hand-picked and not elected, they have a tendency to have a bias. So what are you going to do relative to managing these committees and staffs to ensure that every small business or everyone that wants to get into the business has an equal opportunity and access to the Georgetown market?
Right. Well, and that's really key, what you just said there, Bill. I mean, everyone who wants to get involved can. I mean, I usually promote that. When I applied to Commission on Aging, for example, it was because being part of the youth commissions or anything like that, I have 3 kids. So I wanted to stretch myself into a different area. I didn't feel like there was any preference. I just put my name in the hat. And when I look at that group, because that's my personal experience, I see a lot of diversity in that group. As I mentioned, though, there's only 2 younger people in the group. I wish there was, because I think that lends a different perspective when you're hearing from, a realtor like Gene Jansen that deals with Sun City and has such a depth of knowledge. I learned so much from him. I think we as a community, there's one person, you go to an event or you're invited, it usually involves an invitation. That person talks to 5 more. That's how we become interwoven as a community. So I think that's hugely important. The boards and commissions, if you have applied and you have been consistently not able to get on a board or commission, I think I would appreciate you bringing that to my attention. That's not been my personal experience, and I haven't really heard of it being an issue, but I think the boards and commissions that I've served on may not be, the ones you're talking about are more like our planning and zoning commission and things like that, correct? Yeah, so I don't know all of the individuals. There's a lot of people who I don't know in the city as well. I'm kind of like a big cheerleader for the city, and I love our city, maybe a little bit too optimistic, so I probably will need to work to be more critical of some of those things, but that's not, again, been my experience so far.
Yeah, a more pointed follow-on question.
Okay.
Who has the final say on a piece of property that they own? The owner or an unelected body of individuals who are trying to keep it a certain way?
In regards to zoning?
In regards to zoning. For instance, a house that wants to be sold as a house, but the city doesn't want it to be sold as a house and wants to be zoned something different.
So they can actually change that? I wasn't
Yeah.
aware that because.
Could I ask for clarification? Are you talking about P&Z or HART, or are you talking about both?
I'm talking about any body of individuals that forms a historical or preservation commission that thinks they have the final say on someone's property when they don't pay a dime toward the mortgage of it.
Right, or taxes, or, that's a tough one. I didn't realize that can change.
The HART has been reduced by our current administration, thankfully, to a lesser level of Supreme Court of the city.
Okay.
But their attitude is still the same. And what comes in many times in their deliberations is complete ignorance or physically ignoring the actual law. Somebody complies with the law. The P&Z, I can attest, for the last 3 years has been right on mark. If they do the law, we'll override the recommendation of the city's staff. If they are violating what is the code,
right,
then they need to talk to the city council to change that code. But the commissions you were on the commission, you're commissioned with a certain charter.
Right.
That's what we have to obey by.
Yeah.
But HART is still in the process of, hopefully, we'll get to the mayor on that.
He does a lot more than I do about this. I'm probably chomping at the bit to actually.
But there will be some need on the city council to be in
Okay.
unity on reducing this attitude of
Right.
a one commission that has had free reign over the city for many years. When I was the president of the Economic Development Corporation, time after time after time we came in with somebody for the.
They don't have a great reputation. I
No, they
know
don't.
that, yeah.
But they literally threw out people that had already signed our leases and everything. And they said, well, no, you can't do it. We're ruling against it.
Okay.
No law has supported that decision, but the decision was still held.
So really, it sounds to me as if it's more about a level of accountability for that commission.
Very much
And absolutely, I could support that. There's no, I mean, I would need to know more, and that doesn't sound like something that would be in alignment with my,
I'm sure
my
you could.
principles.
I'll link you up to someone in your district who has that issue.
Okay, all right, thank you. But until May 6th, you can talk to Keith. By the way, Keith did endorse me as of yesterday, so.
Describe your district.
So we're in it. We're in it right here. It goes up to Williams, a little bit north of Williams. Kind of forms a crescent on the west side of 35. As I mentioned, I live in River Ridge 1. So, and then of course goes west along Leander Road. Nothing goes too far west, even down to Interspace Cabins, basically.
And then Williams Drive all the way out to
Booties Crossing.
Booties Crossing.
Like you mentioned, there's a lot of ETJ out there as well. There's pockets like Legacy Oaks where, you know, I go start walking, I'm like, oh, well, that's not even in the city, you know, so.
Any other questions? I'm going to fire one.
Yeah, you're aware that Georgetown Electric is now purchasing 100% renewable energy.
Yes.
If you had been on the city council when that was being debated, would you supported that, or would you oppose it?
I think it made, I mean, both again as a consumer and just having watched the whole thing, because I lived here during pretty much that entire discussion. It makes economic sense. I think that the way that the city managed it as well from a public relations perspective has been sound. If it equates to, yes, we can keep our costs basically the same for a period of time as opposed to having spikes, then again, it makes economic sense. I didn't see all of the information. You know, whether or not I would have voted that way really depends on so much information I don't have access to.
Let me get elaboration for Mr.
I
was wondering when he was going to jump in.
I was just going to ask if you were aware that the city lost $6 million plus last summer in the electric company.
From when all of this.
It's not real transparent.
Yeah.
Exactly how, why, or when. Because they refused to share that kind of information with the public.
So, as a utility system lost money, you're saying?
The electric company was lost.
Yeah, Georgetown.
Georgetown Electric. It was hedging in the.
I wasn't aware of that, honestly.
It wasn't well publicized.
Okay.
We'll go after the mayor on that.
I welcome the opportunity to educate Mr. Putnam this
I'm
morning.
gonna have to stick around, yeah. This would be good. I didn't know that. I do know that there's a significant percentage of our budget has to do with utility systems in general, I mean, in and out kind of thing. But again, for me, generally speaking, it's jack of all trades is actually not a bad thing to kind of say I'm going to know a little bit about a lot, but in terms of depending on, staff and others, experts, to really understand.
Go back to one other question. What is your knowledge of and position for or against the municipal league of Texas?
I wasn't aware of them as an organization, but
They're
they're the ones that are having city staff or elected officials to go and to lobby for. Okay, are they related to Senate Bill 2?
Well, we're currently, but I mean all through the year.
But that's the type of activity.
But there's also a county equivalent of that organizes counties as well.
Generally speaking, because I'm talking generalities right now just because of my lack of knowledge in specifics, the more that we can control things on a local level, the better. So it worries me when the state comes and mandates things. It's not, in some ways not that different than the federal government saying I'm going to come in and do some blanket approach that may or may not make sense. The state right now, I've been involved in school systems for a number of years, so I'll give you an example of that I definitely disagree with, and I don't know how it correlates. But the fact that you can take a property-rich district and take some monies back to the Robin Hood plan, and y'all heard of this, right? Take it back to the state, but then not even use it for education is a huge issue in my mind, and that's a state-level decision that's made that I disagree with.
Yeah, a lot of that misbehavior is well known. Along the transparency.
And I'm never interested in running for state government. I think that gets into
Well,
professional politicians and all of that. I'm not necessarily interested in.
Local control is very important because local control really needs to be local control with respect also in compliance with the Constitution, when the control is we the people and not we the elected.
Yes.
So, but to track back to part of what Terry's saying and overall transparency, one of the things I've observed recently with some of the city council meetings I've gone to and comments and discussions and even looking at it online is that when an issue or items come up on the agenda at city council, it's kind of like a public routine. It says all in favor, instead of hands keep going up. And I don't see any more dissent or any lively conversation or even someone on the committee saying, well, I'm not going to vote in favor of that because I just don't believe in it. What is your position going to be if you really don't believe in something? Will you vote against something publicly and express your views?
Yeah, first of all, I think that the meetings are more efficient now simply because they're more efficient. There's a lot that happens in workshops that's not on the dais. I wasn't as involved back when we had some more lively council meetings, is my understanding. This has just been the last 3 or 4 years that I've been more observant of council meetings, so I know that it can easily be perceived as, hey, we just kind of, that raising the hand, but I do believe, and I've talked with Keith and Ty about the discussions that happen in workshop, and those can get lively, is my understanding, and those are too open to the public. So I think when you're on the dais and you're on council and you see that happen, I have seen a lot of people after someone from the public speaks, have questions and have dialogue, and things get delayed to the next meeting or 2 or 3. The last 3 or 4 council meetings, that's happened consistently. So I would do that as well. If it wasn't clear and I wasn't firm in which way I would want to vote, then I would want either staff to come in and provide more information, or I would want for us to collect more from the public, if that made sense, whichever way that it went. But I'm not going to go against my own integrity and values and raise my hand for no reason. I have to know why I'm doing it because I'm going to be accountable and have to answer for that.
Well, it's good that the workshops, the biggest flaw in workshops is lack of public citizen input. They're excluded from participating. They
So
can
they
sit
can
there
go
and
and
listen.
observe, but they
They can sit
can't.
and listen, but people like Terry and a lot of people in Sun City, a lot of other retired folks in the Georgetown community have extreme experience and knowledge from industry and their professions, and quite often are way more knowledgeable on certain subjects than those who are participating in a workshop. What would you do to garner that input of expertise to make it work for Georgetown instead of silencing them?
I would think obviously it starts with knowing who those individuals are and understanding, to the degree with which they're willing to lend their time, talent, treasure. I wouldn't say to anyone, no, I won't take a meeting, no, I won't listen to you for whatever reason. I think that on an individual basis, that's what I can promise, and I don't know how it's been or what it would be involved to say we have a different advisory committee or we have some other sub-body that wants to provide input. Maybe that's not on a commission or board, but separate from that. So I can only say what I would do is I would listen to someone who wanted to provide me with that input.
Okay, we're coming to the end. Any others? Yes.
Yes. What's your stance on sanctuary cities and illegal immigration?
Like most people in this city and county, I want people who are here unlawfully to be taken care of. I just spoke with Robert Chody, and I know that Williamson County, in regards to the process of actually taking someone once they've broken the law here and making sure that they're held accountable, he's strictly adhering to that. Sanctuary cities is unconstitutional.
What does taking care of mean? I don't understand that.
Holding them accountable. So if there's someone who's speeding through our city and gets pulled over, I want our police officers to have every right and understand the process by which they turn those individuals over to county or ICE officials.
Will you encourage or support having the members of the police force participate in the 287G program to be certified by ICE so they can enforce immigration law?
So as it stands right now, is that a county function or a city?
That is a program that is open to all law enforcement in the state.
Yeah, I haven't spoken with the chief about it, but so obviously I would trust his judgment in that because he is our leader. And if there's a cost involved, if there's things that council would need to get involved with to be able to say, yes, we need to do this. I think our incidence level is fairly low, but I do expect that to increase over time. And as I said, it seems like the county is very well equipped right now. I'm not sure if there's a disconnect. I would need to be more informed.
Sheriff Chody has honored every ICE detainer request.
Okay, good.
He even got very specific to say if I've had to turn someone over and then they've let people go, I want it to be noted that it didn't come from Williamson County. So
he's done a very good job. And as far as I know, Nero has endorsed the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
If the city ends up with somebody and an ICE detainer comes in, they're detained.
I can't imagine they've made the training horribly complex.
No,
it's a certification so that they can properly follow the law.
Okay, we're coming to the end of her time. If anybody has any other statements, questions, or anything like that? No?
Can I make one closing
Sure.
statement?
Well, yeah, we're going to leave you for...
I know I've talked a lot, but I'm just...
Oh, I want you to.
So I appreciate you guys having me out. I do thank you, and I'm very encouraged to see a body that gets together on a very regular basis to stay informed. I know that you're better informed than me in some particular areas, so I would look forward to continuing dialogue. I want to let you know that my opponent in this race specifically is a very liberal Democrat, and so at the end of the day, I would appreciate your support, not because he's a bad person, he's a family person that lives right around the corner, but because he really is creating this environment to talk about national issues that have really no place in our local government and in our city. So the fact that he got upset because Trump got elected is not a good enough reason to try to represent with no resume, no anything. So if it's about me and being representative and being someone you can align with from a values and integrity standpoint, but understand that he could get 500 or 600 people hugely motivated and make what I believe is a negative impact in the city. So I do appreciate your support.
Initially, I put that duck there just to be, horsey about it. But I point for that duck right now. That is a duck of discrimination. That duck tells me that candidate wants to discriminate against every one of us in this room and every one of us that have these strong opinions and beliefs in government, being we the people. They do not show up because they literally have said, you're not our constituency, which is a lie.
Right.
So I thank you for that. Okay,
Thank you.